there, welcome to ATL and 29, a podcast where we look at the NBA from the starting point of Atlanta. My name is Kevin Chenard. I'm here with Glenn Willis and Tyler Jones, and we're pulling ourselves away from the tail ends of the national championship to record here. Somehow, some way, I think Connecticut's going to win this one.
Producing trouble. I just turned it on for the first time like 1 minute ago. I was at the gym. So yeah, Purdue looks like they're in trouble. Just based on the score. That's
Yeah,
my that's the advanced analysis I provide, around these parts. So
the offense is not going to be dynamic enough to dig out of this hole.
they really only taken 4 3-point attempts.
Yeah,
Okay,
they
so
have
That's college basketball
not
for you.
done any double teaming, so there's
that
there's
sounds like
no
my middle.
advantages being created.
Throw back to my middle school when we didn't have a 3-point line. Might as well not have a 3-point line. It's kind of the thinking, right?
Speaking of bad offense, what do the Hawks have to do to score 150 so they can beat the Nuggets?
Have Trae Young on the team.
Well, he's on the team.
Well, have Trae Young on the floor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Other
no.
than that,
If you can't take advantage of Jokic's slow feet, it's gonna be a long night against the Nuggets because they don't have many weaknesses. Even with Aaron going out, like it's just like they're a chance for a reason, and they won by Jokic's brilliance, but also because their defense was so improved over the last couple seasons due to Aaron Gordon. But now that they've built on that base that that Malone's kind of been trying to implement for them for a couple seasons now. So it's just like I don't know. I like that, and the Hawks got to play better defense. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I only watched like the first half of that game because I was like, yeah, it's not happening. So altitude, fourth game in 6 nights. I'm still angry at. I'm still like I'm annoyed how NBA seasons there's like just scheduled losses on the schedule. Like if every game is supposed to matter, that cannot be a thing. But it is. That's just the nature of the league. So I don't know. Unfortunate that the Hawks, when they were playing well, got hit with the 4 game and 6 night, run of games.
Yeah, it was interesting because it felt like they were exactly 12 points behind for like 3.5 quarters. It's just every time you look up, like, oh, they're 12 down point. Maybe they can make this interesting, but yeah, they couldn't stop the Nuggets on offense. I've said it before, I'll repeat it. Like, Jokic is obviously the thing that let them get to a top tier in the league. The thing that made them a championship team is Jamal Murray's willingness to take his defense very seriously,
Yep.
take tough defensive assignments, and I mean it's one of the reasons he's been banged up a lot is because he takes a lot of wear and tear on defense, and he's really kind of paid the price. It bothers me he's never made an All-Star team. That's crazy to me. You kind of look at who's made All-Star teams, and then I think the thing that's helped them is when they had KCP that some of that defensive workload came off of Jamal Murray. In that case, but I mean, when you get a guy who's as good as Jamal Murray as an offense, and you get a coaching staff between the coaching staff and him to accept that he's got to take his defense as seriously as his offense. That's what gets you from tier 2 to tier 1, in the league, is when you have guys like that can do that. It's not like he's not the smallest guy in the world. He's not the biggest guard in the world. He's not the fastest guard in the world. He's not the slowest. But he does it with technique and effort and just competitiveness. He's a super competitive guy. He's one of my favorite guys in the league to watch because of that reason. He goes out and just competes every single possession. And to me, that's what I mean. There's no way they even get close without Jokic, right? But in terms of like being a team that can win 4 series, Murray and KCP, are the guys that kind of really make that happen. Then you watching them play the other night and watch a guy like Peyton Watson like buying
Yeah,
into
Peyton
the
Watson.
defensive responsibilities too. So I mean, they're doing a really good job there, and I know they don't get as much attention as a lot of other teams that are in bigger markets and have more historical franchises and maybe perceived relevance, kind of being there and stuff like that. But I feel like that they're just kind of really just continuing to kind of develop and invest in kind of next group of players that are coming along. And And it's impressive to see. But yeah, it was funny. Just like every time I turn around, I'd be like, oh, 12 points, 12 points, 12 points. You're like, okay, I think you get two stops, make two threes. Maybe they'll be right there. And then it couldn't make it happen.
I don't know. To me, like early, it just didn't feel like they had to. Because with the Nuggets, you've got to defend the whole floor because of Jokic. Like he'll make every pass from any angle, so you have to defend the whole floor the whole time, and like that is exhausting. And I just don't think mentally, mentally or physically, like they just. I don't think they had it from like the first quarter, and I'm like, if they're not going to consistently like force uh I thought earlier Capella was actually doing a decent job of forcing Jokic into making decisions he didn't want to make. But what's so problematic about the Nuggets, Jamal Murray was just roasting them. And I'm like, oh well. I mean, if I mean they early in the game they did a good job on Jokic, but like I mean they're the chance for a reason. But I like your point you made, Glenn, about Jamal taking a challenge on defense because that's something I tweeted about this during the Mavericks game that I thought Jalen should have been guarding Kyrie Irving. Now I understand, and you came back, you replied that that's a coaching decision. That's obviously the case. But my takeaway was that Jalen was kind of being wasted because he's guarding PJ Washington in the corner, and like PJ's a pure catch and shoot three and D like forward for the Mavericks. I'm like that's so it's taking Jalen out of the play the majority of the time. They're just having Jalen stationed in the corner while Kyrie Irving is going after DeJounte Murray and like understanding the defensive offensive burden that Murray has. I thought Jalen should have been the one to accept the challenge there because I mean if you look at it, if you just look what the Mavericks were doing on the other end, Kyrie was guarding non-DeJounte, non-J, like the worst offensive threat on the floor. Like he was never on ball defensively.
That's
The
right.
the Mavericks did a good job of keeping I think Derrick Jones Jr. and why am I
Awesome.
yeah keeping those guys on DeJounte the entire game to wear him out to make it hard on him physically the whole game. And I was like, okay, Murray's not going to last the full game if you're asking him to guard Kyrie Irving, you know, while also um while also having to run the Hawks offense. Like it just and I felt like they just ran out of gas in that fourth quarter. I mean, third game in 4 nights, three different cities.
Yeah.
Me wondering why are the Hawks being punished for a postponement that didn't have anything to do with them.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah,
like I didn't
yeah,
I understood why they postponed the game. I'm just like that doesn't make any sense to me.
yeah, yeah.
So
But I mean, but if you think about it, so I'm trying to put myself in kind of Quinn's position, right? So you're using Hunter on Luka. Then if you take Jalen and put him on Kyrie, your low man is either DeJounte or Bogey or Veet, right? And that's not a that's not a great position to be in. So that doesn't invalidate your perspective or your point, but I
yeah, but
think
the
I
Mavericks
think it points to lineup and roster construction that it's like, well, if I put Jalen on Kyrie, then my low man is toast.
yeah, but you know what that does? That takes away Kyrie Irving Luca actions. You know, I'm okay because I like what DeAndre was doing. Like DeAndre's doing such a good job one-on-one on Luca in ISO situations. So can we take any action that features Kyrie and Luca just out of the Mavericks playbook? Force them into ISO situations. Like, all right, is Kyrie going to beat Jalen Johnson off the dribble the entire night? I'm skeptical. Who else on the Mavericks is going to be able to drive to the lane? Like that's one where you got to be like, I, to me, I don't know. I'm like, I want to put my two best perimeter defenders on the Mavericks' two best offensive players, and I'm telling the other three guys to make it work defensively on the back end with communication and teamwork. But I just felt like to me, I just felt like you didn't utilize what Jalen could do defensively enough. Like you didn't take advantage of what the uniqueness of Jalen Johnson's defensive game. Um, but I mean, they all that aside, if they weren't going to score any points in the fourth quarter, they weren't going to win the game regardless. They scored like what 7 points? It was like
I think it was 14 for the quarter, but like 2 for the second half.
It was, it was not good.
Kevin, if Jalen wasn't coming off the ankle, do you think it might have been more likely to see him on Kyrie or Luka? Either one.
I don't think they would put him on Luka. I think they would. I think they would use Hunter there for good reason. Like he has a lot of experience doing it. He did an amazing job on it. I mean, maybe if Jalen didn't have an ankle injury, that you pick him for like the second quarter stint where like Veet was trying to guard Luka and it didn't go well.
Yeah. Yeah, reason I say
I would say
Luka,
with Luka, I mean, sorry, with Veet and Jalen both, I feel like and it's such a freaking long season, but I feel like there's been some defensive backslide for both over the last week, 10 days. Like Jalen, I mean, he's good when he's in the primary action. I feel like he's a beat slow sometimes in recognition or hustle, trying to kind of clean up in sort of a team defensive scheme. And there just seems like a lot of parts where he just misses misses a rotation or misses maybe just a step where he's supposed to do something and he gives up a step and he's a step late trying to get somewhere. I don't know that he's been sort of peak Jalen defensively since he's come back.
Yeah. Well, the reason I say Luka, I mean, and obviously like Hunter and Luka was worked well for the Hawks, right? Statistically. But if you're going to take a guy coming off an ankle, do you want him just trying to keep Luka in front? Or do you want him chasing Kyrie Irving all over the court, who has all the moves, all the change of direction?
Yeah, but Jalen has the size, man. He's so big and so quick. Like, you just see it with guards. They don't want to attack him because if he steps with them, they're done. If it's one step, they're falling back because he just has the size, and that's where I'm like, hey, just take on the chunk, like help DeJounte out. Like I'm like, man, you guys are really leaving it up to like asking DeJounte to face guard Kyrie Irving and then run the offense at the same time. I'm like, it's just not gonna work.
Right.
I mean, that's where
that's
you
fair.
want. I mean, that's where you want Trae Young to be back on the team. Because that's the point. That's where this roster is not built for Trae Young to be missing so many games. That's just the honest truth of it. Like, I mean, no team can lose somebody like Trae Young offensively and expect to sustain positive like positive play on offense, in particular with the Hawks. So it's not a surprise. Like it's not a surprise to me the Hawks have kind of backslid a bit with their offense a little bit. The defense had been impressive before the Nuggets game where they kind of just got boat race, which I mean it is the Nuggets. They're playing in Denver. I get it. But that's where I'm still hopeful. Like if I can see the defense that the Hawks have been playing the last couple weeks, with Trae Young, they have a chance. But we gotta first see what type of shape Trae Young's gonna look like. He's not playing tomorrow, but hopefully he's playing within the next couple days.
Will be interesting to see. One thing that annoyed me about the Nuggets game was, Glenn, I think Glenn said it, Capela was doing a pretty good job on Jokic. And then when they would bring Bruno in, they got boat raced. Like that's, and it wasn't like that's not to be expected, but you're playing at altitude, so you're thinking maybe shorter shifts. But Jokic played the entire first quarter, and Capela played 5 minutes and change. Like that doesn't seem like a long enough stint where you can just let Jokic have 6 minutes plus on your backup in the first quarter. That felt like a hole that they dug that they, really just couldn't recover from at that point. And the part that just kind of puzzles me is like, okay, if you're really feeling like Capela can't play these long stints, like why is he playing 8+ minutes in the fourth quarter when you're down 20? Like if he can go 8 minutes at a time in the fourth quarter when you don't really actually have a chance of winning the game, let him play 8 in the first quarter. Like it just didn't make any sense to me.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
coaches. That's just Kevin. I mean, in the first half, um, I feel like all coaches just stick to their standard rotation for the most part towards the tail end of the season, and that's just when Capella comes out the game. And like, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think Quinn's been a little too trusting of Bruno's form. I mean, Bruno's been good, but like you see when he's not on his game, it gets really bad really quickly. And so like you'd like, but the issue with Bruno is he's so like his inconsistencies aren't really clear. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's tough to tell and unless Bruno is playing in the game if you're gonna get a good or bad Bruno game. Because it's more like a mental thing with Bruno and a talent like a talent thing. Like he's not accountable on the defensive side of the floor, but he does do some things well. And I guess Quinn is like, Bruno's playing well. I want to reward his play. Let's see what he has to offer to, Jokic. I don't think that's I, I don't know. I'm with you, Kevin, but it's like
Yeah. I mean, Bruno almost
you
cost
gotta
them the
be
Detroit game. They almost lost to Detroit because Bruno just wasn't up to standard that game. Like they had a lot of great performances against Detroit, and Bruno was not one of them.
they should have beat the Pistons by like 40 points, and
And yeah.
Malachi Flynn should have never gotten 50 in an NBA game. That was embarrassing for
So,
everybody.
someday in revisionist history, Trae Young is somehow going to get blamed for Malachi Flynn getting 50. Oh, Trae Young's defense was terrible that game.
I
Remember
mean,
when Malachi hung 50 on Trey?
It's
yeah,
coming. It's coming.
It's gonna happen. Yeah, it's gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because as you watch Bruno, and like over the whole season, he's been a positive. He's been helpful.
Yep.
He's done
absolutely.
a good job.
Yep.
But his offense is pretty far ahead of his defense right now. His touch is good. He's head fake, drawing fouls. Really kind of knowing when he has space in the middle to work and attacking in space.
Actual
And
post move.
the defense is foul issues, a little slow on a read, a little late here, a little late there, and so it's like is he turning into Montrezl Harrell where it's kind of like it's all offense and the defense is like, oh, let's see what we get tonight. He has different tools than Montrez had. I mean, I always enjoyed Montrez. He was fun to watch, but he's not the guy I want like closing at the 5 position on a game win, defensively and stuff like that. I mean, the reality is Bruno's offense is pretty far ahead of his defense right now, and maybe that's something that starts to shift next year, because he does show it on defense sometimes. It's just really inconsistent. But the
Yeah,
offense is pretty good. It's like I said, he's pretty far ahead. His offense is pretty far ahead of his defense. So
Bruno's offense has help this team stay afloat in certain nights where it's like, especially when DeJounte's not on the floor with them and they need somebody to get a bucket. And it's like Bruno is very good at sealing his guy and creating a mismatch for himself to either get a double team to come his way or to make the shot, make whatever hook shot he's creating for himself. So like that's just the tough thing with Bruno is his defense is inconsistent. And I don't think it's anything to do with physical like limitations. I just think it's the mental aspects of the game of you got to be online all the time as a defensive, like as a center. That's just the reality. Like you can't take plays off. There's no such thing as that. You got to be the one setting the tone, and he does do it sometimes, but other times, like he might get a little bit overwhelmed. So, and you got to remember, like even though Bruno's been in the league for a long time, like he's not somebody who's typically played every game of his career, if that makes sense. Like he's a guy who gets a lot of DMPs just because of the position he plays, even though he is good. Like even though I feel like he's a backup caliber center. He's kind of he's kind of overstretched now because of Capela's physical limitations, where they clearly don't want Capela playing 28 plus minutes a night. They just don't. And so, like, because they're asking Bruno to play more minutes than he probably should, you get to see his limitations in real time, where it's like defensively, he's not a starter caliber center, but he's playing starter minutes right now because of Congu's hurt.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The defense shows sometimes, but for him to be like, if he's to be their backup center for the next 2 to 3 years or whatever, he's got to be more steady in that area of play. He's got to foul less. He's got to be more steady, more consistent. Doesn't have to be all defense or anything like that. Just more reliable on that end than he's been this year.
Agreed. What are you looking forward to for the rest of the season? Like the play-in appearance at least is clinched. What can they do in the final 4 games here that establishes a good or bad precedent for that game?
Well,
I mean,
I'm looking
I think
forward
it's
to
habits
watching.
of principles. Yeah, I was saying habits of principles. Like getting tighter with the things that they've been, things they've done well since the All-Star break is more consistency, just being more steady with that kind of stuff and everything. When they're playing poorly, that's the stuff that's because that stuff's disappearing. The ball movement. I mean, and we've talked about it, right? I mean, people will watch like the Hawks against the Bulls. The Bulls drop, sink, chase over. Like you want to drive and kick and drive and kick and drive and kick it. So sometimes that's what the defense is doing. But it really is just kind of being more connected on both ends of the court, communicating, and really kind of living to those principles. When you're open, take the shot. When the closeout's coming at you, you attack the closeout, attack the paint. Get a paint touch, as Quinn calls it, right? And it's just kind of those basic kind of things that they're doing. So that's what I'm looking for, because that's when they're not playing as well as they have in other games. That's the stuff that's not happening. Sometimes it's them. Sometimes it's the other team doing a good job of kind of taking some of that stuff away from them. Sometimes it's some of both. But that's, for me, it's like you just want to kind of continue building yourself up to a point where you believe in what you're doing. You trust yourself and your teammates to do those things and make it a priority, and that's what's gonna kind of give you a shot. Sorry to cut you off there, Tyler.
No, you good. And like just to add on that, a basketball player who I feel like is embodying that, especially on the defensive end, is Kobe Buffkin. But you want to talk about he's only 6'4", and like if he's 200 pounds, he's barely 200 pounds, but like he gets after it on defense. And he's willing to put his body on the line to challenge shots at the rim. Like it's some of the blocks he's had are beyond impressive for like any player. Like you don't see this from guards. The Stonewall of center, like of any center in the NBA, but like especially a super athletic one with Mavericks play with, like that's impressive. And then when I say like take on the challenge, like he was not afraid to go after Kyrie Irving on defense. Like, and that Kyrie's got every trick in the bag, and he will embarrass you sometimes. But like he didn't let that bother him. And so just that confidence when you within yourself to know I belong in this league. I'm good. And what I want to see more from him these next 4 games is to believe on more of that on the offensive end. You see it sometimes. Then other times he'll hesitate on the three, or he'll think about taking the three before instead of just letting it rip. Or he's not looking for a shot. where he's a little bit too passive, where he's okay with just running the offense instead of attacking, getting downhill, which is stuff he can do, and forcing the help and drive and kick and all that stuff, like taking more ownership of the offensive side of the ball, like trusting the work that he's put in. I'd like to see, him be put in more advantageous situations, one where maybe it's not him being the primary offensive player, like maybe he gets to play next to a Trae Young, taking advantage of the opportunities that Trae would provide for him if he's playing off of Trae. So that's something I'm looking for, and I'm also looking for if Trae does come back, I want to see it if DeJounte will embrace the catch and shoots that I feel like he's done more. Even though he's been the guy, like he does a lot of his damage from the perimeter off of catch and shooting, and if he's willing to accept a less of a role on offense next to Trae Young and really establish what he's kind of been building on the defensive side of the floor, like we'll see. We'll see. It's unfortunately they got like they may only have two games, 3 or 2 games to do it with those two together. But that's what I'm looking forward to. Like I just want these guys to get healthy and put their best foot forward during the play-ins, like ultimately. Like I don't, if they're going to lose in the play-in, I don't want it to be Kongu, Trae, Jalen retwists his ankle or something like that. Like I don't want it to be an injury thing. If the team I root for loses, I want them to lose because they just weren't the better team that night in the play-in. So more than anything, I want to see these guys get healthy so that they can show off what they can do. Like there's a lot of talk of the Hawks being the most disappointing team in the NBA. In some levels, I can understand that, but I mean, if you're not accounting for injuries, then what are we doing here? And I haven't been disappointed with the Hawks season. They were disappointing to start the season, but I felt like, especially post All-Star break, this is the team that we all like. This is the basketball team we thought we were going to get, minus Trae. And if they can add with Trae Young with that, I feel like they got upset potential in the play-in and in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's to go back to what Tyler said a minute ago, where he's talking about DeJounte embracing the catch and shoot. It's really too bad that he couldn't have Trae beside him more now, because I think that in April, both Bogey and DeJounte have looked a little overworked. That they're sort of paying for the overuse in March, because they both did so much in the initial absence of Trae and Jalen that they played some great basketball, and they just had to do a lot of things in the compressed schedule, and now hopefully they both have enough in the tank to finish. But I think Tyler hit it exactly on the head. It's not so much that it's a disappointing season, it's just that it was a disappointing start when they were healthy. But now, since the All-Star break, they've certainly looked better.
They didn't put their best foot forward to start the season. Like that's
didn't.
I mean, it's a lot of guys were underperforming. Capela, Okongwu, I'd say was underperforming a bit. Sadiq Bey was not executing on defense. DeAndre Hunter got hurt early, and then Jalen got hurt as well. And then it just kind of snowballed where they didn't have Kobe Buffkin, and Garrison Matthews wasn't this good. And Pete Crazy wasn't
close.
Can I interject for a second, because it kind of gets to the question that I wanted to ask, which kind of looking at the full season for the Hawks, but especially the full season for Clint Capela, like the last month or so, he's been gangbusters. Mm-hmm. How much of it is just him playing better, looking healthier? How much of it is him being more comfortable with the scheme, or the scheme playing more to his strengths? Because at the beginning of the season, they just did a whole lot with him up at the level of the screen, and they've taped. Am I crazy? Have they tapered that way back and sort of?
They have. Yeah.
Does it? I'm just like, why did they not do it earlier? What were they thinking they were going to get out of that?
I think it's when DeJounte and Trey are both on the floor playing defense.
Yeah, that's a
They,
good
they
point.
they need support from their big at the level, right? So that's something they have to figure out one way or the other, right? I mean, and we're at the point now where a Kongwu's probably better at that, or is better, he's better equipped to do it now. He's younger, but Clint's played over 15,000 minutes in his career.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a Kongwu Jalen just seems like the optimal pairing to do that with, and
Right. But
because
I
you've
mean,
got somebody that can be the help man, you've got somebody in a Kongwu who can recover if he's the one up at the action.
right.
But it just
Right. But then like yeah, but I
But to
mean
be fair,
when Beat's helping on ball, I mean it's weird that Beat was an upgrade, was one more guy that could defend the ball. He became that. Trent Forrest, because he had to for a while. And so they had a little bit more to throw at the, on ball defense there for a while, which lets you put Clint more in his traditional drop coverage, and that sort of thing. But when you go back to next season, if it's Trey plus DeJounte again, which it very well could be, they got to figure that out because that's it was. I mean, they were giving up like how many times they give up 140 this year? It feels like it was a lot, And in December, it felt like it was every other game they were giving up, at least 135. So that to me, that's what it was. It's like, oh, we got two small guards, defending, and how are we going to kind of get them the right kind of support? And then when Hunter
and it's
goes
not
out,
it,
then
it's
so
it's not just two small guards, Glenn. It's two small guards
and
plus
Sadiq.
DeAndre Hunter plus Sadiq without Jalen,
yeah,
and like neither Sadiq or DeAndre can defend out in front. Like point of attack defense. Like DeAndre has matchups where he can excel, like we talked about with Luka, but like if that's your number one point of attack defender, you're just gonna getting ate up every screen. Like every screen, one screen with DeAndre and it's over. We're point guards get, or whoever's the offensive star for that team is getting middle, and they're drawing help, and the Hawks got to put two on the ball, and so then you put two on the ball. If it's a gifted passer, they can make the right read to either the corner or a lob attempt, like how the Hawks do on their side of the floor. So I just think it was a personnel thing to start the season. They literally didn't have a point of attack defender, but then when Trey got hurt, DeJounte was a lot better defensively. Now we can argue. It's to me, it's not as if he was guarding point guards the entire time defensively. I feel like he was still guarding the same matchup that he usually does, because it was Veet guarding the offensive player, when he was there. So like to me, it's just one of those things where uh, everybody got better defensively. Bogey got better defensively. Capela, you know, some of it is scheme. I don't put all of it on scheme.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Capela was not challenging shots at the rim.
That's
He
right.
just was. He was getting it. The amount of times I saw non like elite finishers finish over Clint Capela to start the season was blowing my mind. I was losing patience. I
It
wanted
was kind of weird. Yeah.
off the
I mean,
team,
don't you think that's because he can't recover to the rim like he could
but
when he
he
was
would be in
25?
no, Glenn. He'd be in
There were
position.
times where he was around the play and it still feel like, oh wait, why wasn't
But
Clint up on that?
compare that to now, where Clint, the lane is his now. You don't just
Yeah.
you don't just throw stuff up at the rim
Yeah,
and not expect Clint Capela to challenge the shot. That's not
yeah.
what that was. I understand he was up the floor and like sometimes he was out of position. There were times where he was not up the floor and he just wasn't like he's gotten a lot better during the course of the season. That's why I'm confused because I've seen Capela do this is like I feel like this is either the third or fourth every year of Capela's career in Atlanta where he just has these stretches of negative play, and then he'll turn it up. And I'm like, I'm over here. I'm like, what's the difference? Because it's not this to me. There's some of it scheme, but like a lot of it, he's just moving better, and it's showing up on all. He's moving better, because he's able to finish non-lob attempts. That's my only way to judge if I'm getting good Capela is if he's able to put the ball on the floor and like make a play. I don't know.
I mean, kind of to zoom out a little, right? Hunter, like on point of attack, he's good on Luka. He was good on Tatum last year because neither of those guys have the athleticism to kind of. They're not bursty athletes, right?
Right.
So Hunter can take those assignments, right?
Yep.
To me, Jalen is not a guy. I don't want him to be my first choice taking those assignments. They still need that guy for Sadiq's never going to be that. Now Sadiq became a much better team defender across the season. Some of that's just sheer effort, but also just paying attention, more and kind of, working that way. He's still, I don't know, not below average, for what you need at the forward position. But if he's making shots, he's a helpful player, right? He gives you enough on that end. So they still have to figure that out. You can't go into the next season. Hunter is your primary point of attack defender. In my mind, you can't do that because you take a guy who is bursty, and Hunter at this point in time, after all these injuries, all that sort of stuff, he just doesn't have that, right? Hunter, outside, people get tired of hearing me say, but Hunter is an exceptional team defender and help defender. He's the best on the team, right? At that stuff, right? And that's where he's optimized. So for him to be a guy like, okay, you're going to guard Luka 16 minutes tonight, instead of 38, or whatever it is, works for me, right? And maybe if it's Luka and Kyrie, you have another guy who's taking Kyrie because Kyrie has all the shippiness and the stuff. He has all of it, right? And that sort of thing. So they still have to figure that out for next year.
I mean, and that just goes back to what we've been talking about. They got to make decisions. They got to make decision with DeJounte. They got to make a decision with Clint Capela to balance the roster out, like just so that they can throw more options at teams. Weirdly, they do have options now, but now, like if everybody's back, Kobe's minutes are blocked, Veet's minutes are somewhat blocked too, with Trey coming back. So they to me they got to make they have to make decisions, and they can't be they cannot be afraid to lose on a trade if it makes the team better.
Yeah,
if it opens up playing time for the right guy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to see what Mogay has next year. Is Seth Lindsay a thing there? Like, I'm looking forward to all those guys that got all that seasoning, and stuff like that. So, and I just want to watch Kobe Buffett play.
I really, I think that's the key is they got to figure out, okay, how much can we get from Kobe next season, knowing that he can give you some of the point of attack defense they just don't have. Like they need that.
Totally. Four more games. Let's have some fun. Good night, Bob.
All right. Good night, Bob.
Night, Bob.